folks, I'm Melody Little and this is your daily TA wrap, where we take a look at these markets and we do it from a neoclassical perspective, each time asking ourselves what happened today and what does it tell us about the coming ones. I do this show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time here from the base of the Rocky Mountains. Folks, I am glad you could join me. And we have another interesting show tonight, another interesting day in these markets. We were down big today. I mean, very big drop. Nasdaq was down about 60 at one point. Comes all the way back, only down 14 or so at the end. Big moves all around. It continues, the volatility continues, and this market, in my opinion, is pacing itself to go lower. But as it has been for the first 4 months, it's about timing. And if you got short and stayed short, you probably lost money because depends on what you got short and if you had the stamina to stay with it. Because we have had a fade down in some of the markets. We've had some huge drops in some stocks, but we've had big gains in other stocks, and we've got Dow and S&P right at the highs. And so it's a very divergent market, has been a divergent market and continues to be. If you want to ask me questions, give comments, here's the 2 places: 303-912-9110. You can text me there, or you can email me, support@tatoday.com. As far as what happened today, ending numbers: Dow was up 117 points, 16,518 and a half. It's only about 100 points below the highs. S&P's 1878. That's about 20 points below the highs. It was up 10 and a half today. So 0.72% here, 0.56% there. The Nasdaq, the NDX, both lost about 1/3%. Nasdaq down 40.67 was the close, 35.46 and a half on the NDX. The Russell closes at 1108. It shows a 17-point loss. That was off all day. I'm not sure what the deal was there today, but the Russell was just slightly down today. So it was actually, the Russell is going to be one we want to look at. But before we go, the Russell. And gold was down about $18 today. Silver was down slightly. Dollar was flat, and oil was up. And so that's kind of a good wrap. Okay, so markets. Let's start with the Dow, because the Dow actually was the strongest today. And if you look at the makeup inside the Dow, a huge percentage of what is in the Dow is tied around financials one way or the other, about 33%. I did an article on that some time back, and with the shakeup they did about a year and a half ago now. Was it a year and a half ago? About a year, I guess. Anyway, the Dow is heavily weighted towards the financials now. And so the Dow does a takeaway bar back the other way, right? So you have a bar up, a takeaway bar the next day, and a takeaway of a takeaway. And Dow heads back up. Volume, though, 9.38, 7.4 were the days before. The bars it was coming back into, 1.1. You can see it didn't have the juice to stay in them again. Dow looks like it wants to try to go back to the highs again, and it just missed it last time. It got to 16,620, and that high was 16,631. So it got within 11 points of the high last time. The way it's trading, it acts like it wants to go back up there. So this was the strongest one today. And then the S&Ps was a close second, because the S&Ps, they pushed down as well. They pushed down into this big bar again, the bottom of this bar, and more importantly, deeper into that 28th bar. Volume on the 28th was 40. We're doing 36. So you can see not quite as much volume, but still, if you look at how we're coming back, volume's expanding again. But again, it flips around, closes at the highs, looks like it wants to go test the top again. And we've had so many tests on this, 2 months up here at these levels. It's it's kind of a like, when will this ever end? I guess is the way it reads. But each time we poke above it, it pushes it back. The one time we went under it, they pulled it straight back up. So right now, with this kind of a reversal, even with the volume expansion compared to what it was going into, it still looks like it's going to go back up here and try again. It's going to try one more time to break it out. So that's the S&P. Now, having said that, if I go over and I look at the weaker guys, in particular the Nasdaq and the Russell. Here's the Nasdaq. You can see volume expanding on the Nasdaq as it comes back into the top of the low bar from the 15th. 24 does 24.8, expands as it comes into it, doesn't stay into it, flips around, does another hammer like we've had before. So we may get another bounce back out of here as a result of that. But Nasdaq volume expanding as we're going into the lows. That says it's going to come back down there and try it again, right? It's not done. And then if we go and look at our trusty friend, the Russell, it's it's a slightly different story in two different ways. One is the Russell goes all the way back, gets underneath them all. And folks, these are multiple swing point lows down here. Not only on this time frame, on the weekly time frame, you got multiple swing point lows at these levels. There's 373 there. We did 363 into it. Not enough volume. Not enough volume on this low is either, that swing point low. So you test two swing point lows. You have decent volume coming into them, but not quite enough. Flips around, does a hammer. This one wants to bounce as well. So looking just at the indexes, looks like another bounce. And last night I was loath to call, which direction this wanted to go, given the takeaway bars from the night before. When I look at this tonight, this does look like it's going to try to bounce tomorrow, and it should try to bounce tomorrow. Now, tomorrow's interesting because we have the ECB first thing in the morning before we get going. And if we go over and look at the dollar, the dollar's hanging down here, gaps lower, it's just hanging. And if we look at the euro's hanging at the highs. So what is the ECB going to do? Because Draghi has said multiple times, Super Mario has told us that a strong euro is bad. Just like everybody else, they want the cheapest currency around, yet they can't get the darn thing to go down. And part of that is because he just promises a lot, never delivers. Everybody else keeps devaluing their currencies. He just talks about it. So will they do something or not? If they do, euro pops down, dollar will pop up, and that probably is going to help the markets, right? The equity markets. Because if they intervene and they start doing some form of QE, that's one of the big things that I think could move this market again. So tomorrow, big day. If they don't do anything again, I think it's going to be tough on the markets, because not that the markets are expecting it, it's just that I believe this is where you could see the kind of a scenario that could drive these markets higher. If they do intervene, and if they do start pushing out some sort of a QE plan tomorrow, an announcement of it, and these markets pop on it, in particular the S&P and the Dow, if they can hold it, that's going to be a big tell as well. Because we got some serious weakness elsewhere in the market, and I'm not sure even if this is going to be enough to do it if they do something. But, we'll see if they do something or not. I don't believe it's expected from what I can read. If it does happen, it will be unexpected, and it should create a pop in these markets. So that's the big event for tomorrow. We've also got Yellen on the Hill, or actually doing another speech. She did one today. She said everything that the market likes. There's excuses to keep rates low and to keep pushing money into the system, and she's basically reaching at everything. She tells us the housing market's weak. She tells us there's always Folks, it'll be 5 years from now. There'll be a reason to keep everything low because there's no way to withdraw it once you've started it all. The only way you withdraw it is you blow it all up in the end. I don't know how you get out of something like this. How do you withdraw? I guess you've got an empty, an empty. You've got a ledger that never has to be balanced, so you can just keep everything in the books. But when a recession comes, it's going to be very fascinating to see how they attack it. And maybe they'll pull out some more tools in their tool chest that they always tell us about. All right, let's go to, so that's the indexes, that's the dollar. The other thing that happened today was gold. Gold came back hard. Gold had been hanging up here, had gotten a move, looked like it was going to try to do something on the way up. Even if it's going to now, it's not going to be a big move. Maybe it gets up and tests the bottom of this high if it reverses right away. But right now, gold looks like it wants to come back in deeper. And if I flip over and look at silver, it tells an opposite story. Silver comes back in, doesn't have the volume. Within a penny of testing this bar, I would think it tested tomorrow. And if silver can't crack into that bar, then that says the metals want to turn. If the metals want to turn, does that mean dollar's going to get weaker and the euro gets stronger? I don't know. It does. They're conflicting stories. I mean, what else isn't conflicting? Everything's conflicting. So I guess it's just as well we have something conflicting here as well. Let's go over and look at real quick the sectors. There was just a couple of them again that had something worth looking at. I'm looking here at my notes. Oh, XLK. So the XLK being an extension of the Nasdaq, right? This one pushes down, but you don't see the volume expansion here like we saw on the Nasdaq. And the NDX actually has a slightly lighter volume, but not quite this dramatic. Here you do 6.8 million into 8.5. That's pretty dramatic. Flips around. This one looks like it wants to go try to test those, this area again. We've got 4 sectors that continue to deal with this breakdown bar back from the 410 breakdown. XLK is one of them. XLK tonight flips around, looks like it wants to go higher. The strength today was in the XLF. The XLF basically does a takeaway bar of the prior day, does it on less volume. Looks like it wants to head back up. Now it has tested twice that same 410 bar and hasn't been able to break it down, and it looks like it wants to run up there and do it again, right? Try one more time. So that's the XLK. The other two, XLV, XLY, they can't move. The other strength today was in a sector that looked like it wanted to break down, but now it won't, and that is the energy sector. The energy XLE goes up again. Now, they had earnings all this week. Most of them were reported at this point, but this sets up another ABCD structure to the upside. So it had finished off one, right? Now it sets up another one, and now it's going to try to do another one to the upside, and it's about halfway there if it's going to make it. So energy sector continues to push higher, and although this is a late cycle, just like the XLP and the XLV, the XLP and the XLU, if we look at those, both of those, money was pouring into those today. Money doesn't want to leave this market. It just keeps rotating. It just keeps rotating into quote-unquote safe things. And then every now and then you see a probe in the ones that have been beaten up, like it did the technology Monday and Friday and Monday. And then they gave up the technology yesterday and again today for the most part. But the money in general doesn't want to leave the market. It just keeps hanging. We got a big IPO scheduled now with Alibaba. This IPO, again, this is like Facebook 2 years ago, like Twitter last fall. There's going to be a push to keep these markets up here, even if they want to fall, even if they're going to fall, they're going to try to keep them up here, because if you're going to push out that much paper, you want to push it out at the highs. You don't want to push it out on a crashing market. As a matter of fact, if you try to do that with the size of this one, it's going to exacerbate the situation. So there's a lot of pressure to keep things up here if in fact, when this is done, they're going to fall. And I'm not saying they will. I'm just simply saying, it looks to me like that is what's coming. But in between Alibaba, it looks to me like they're, another reason to keep it up here. XLB still trying to test up to the highs. Semiconductors couldn't move. That's pretty much it for that. Let's go to the world markets real quick. If I look at the world markets, in here, I'm going to go to Europe first because Europe is where the action is tomorrow. These flipped around, but they did more volume to the downside. That's the CACs and the DAX. They are hanging at the highs still, and if Draghi gives them something, they can pop back up and test the highs again. But both of them suggesting the same thing, and that is that we're pushing lows with higher volume. Therefore, we'll come back down there and try again before it's over. FTSE is probably the strongest one right now. It had a heck of a run, did its ABCD structure, a little doji, push with lows with higher volume. All these could bounce a little bit tomorrow, but I suspect they're all going to try to come back down again. If I go over to China, if I look at the large cap 8 shares that trade on the Hong Kong exchange, bleeding lower. They just can't find a bottom. The last stop now, they've already eaten into this March 24th bar. The last bar of significance is the March 21 bar. That's the confluence of those two. 94.60 area, that's where it's trying to get to. And if I look at the Hong Kong market, it looks about the same to me. This one also in trouble, just bleeding lower. Same sort of a thing, coming back into this gap area off those same two bars. I would think that you get a bounce from there. If you do the ABCD structures, you should get a bounce. Actually, that's not quite true. These actually measure even lower. This one measures all the way down to here. That's going to put it back down underneath there. So just bleeding. These guys can't get going. Now on the opposite side of it, and somebody asked me, I forget when it was, a few days back, what was better, the EEM or the one of the ETFs inside of it, and I suggested the Brazil index. Here's the Bovespa over the highs, keeps extending. This is on a mission to go higher. What is that, EWZ, I believe, that should be at highs. I haven't looked at it. And yeah, it hits the highs tonight. So that's where it is. Let me see what the EEM looks like. It's probably flatlining. Yeah, it is. So you're getting the push up in the one we talked about, and the other one can't move. And it can't move because of China. The problem child is Japan. If you look at Japan, Japan is building to go test these lows again, and folks, it's going to blow them out before it's over. And they're not that far away. And if I flip to the weekly, you can see the magnitude of what it means. Because those lows, swing point lows on multiple time frames, you take them out, and this thing's going to have an ABCD structure to the downside that's very large. I drew it in last night or night before. It's going to take it way down into these bars. This is an ugly situation that continues to set up. You've actually got potential nested ABCD structures inside. The first one will take you to here. From there, I would think you would get a bounce and set up the next one and take you down to whatever the final level is of this move. Japan is a place to avoid. And that, I believe, at some point, Abe is going to come in and throw more money at this thing and just blow up their internals even worse. The disaster that's going to happen on the global scale, this is a good candidate, Japan, because they're on a road to nowhere. You think Alaska and Palin built a road to nowhere. Wait until this one blows. Okay, so that's the general idea here. Let me go. I have a question that was emailed to me here. Let me pop into there and get that one. So I watched your analysis of CLMS with interest. So last night I think we talked about, actually a couple times now, CLMS. We were talking about, let me put this back on a daily. We were talking about the break of multiple swing points that push this thing lower. These three. And so we had talked about how these three swing points, when they broke, right, that usually leads to 2 to 3 bars. This one got four of them to the downside. And then it just held. And then what should happen is it should come back up and do a retest regen off the lowest bar. And eyeballing this, I can't tell if it's this one or the other ones, but we can quickly tell. Let's see what the number was here. 1243, 1242. Interesting. So 1243 is the, 42 is the low. So that means you can actually get a retest regen all the way up to there. But that happens if you go sideways for less than 6 bars. Well, we're more than 6 bars now. So that suggests it's just going to test this lower area somehow. Right? Get up into here somehow, maybe test back into the top of that, and then come back down and try to set, try to regenerate lower. Right? That's what it's going to try to do. And that's the test, and that's the test you have to watch for. So anyway, the question here was FSLR looks the same. So First Solar, this is a solar company, kind of the major one in that index or that sector. And First Solar kind of has one. Yeah, not quite the same, but does have one. So you have a low here, 6409. Closes underneath it. Let's see, the other one is 6331. And it closes over that one. So you broke one, but you haven't broke the other one. And your volume's expanding. Yeah, so this does look the same. Okay, so what this one's going to try to do, if it does start to escalate, right, and you need the break of the other one here, so you can see what it's going to do. And bear with me a second. Let me see what the weekly looks like. Okay, so that's fine. Let's go back to the daily real quick. And then the question is look on the weekly and the daily. So is it a buy somewhere here? Okay, so the way this should work, if you break this next one, right? We haven't broke it yet, but if you do, you should extend 2 to 3 bars down. So you would expect 2 to 3 bars. Now this doesn't tell you how far down. It simply says how long. That's the way this works. And so what you watch for is a break of multiple swing points, and then you take and you measure it 2 to 3 bars. It also doesn't say it will stop after 3 bars. It can just keep going, right? But it does say that you can expect, there's a high probability, especially on a break to the downside, that you will get a 2 to 3 bar extension. If you look over here, you've got a retest regen on that high in this area. And it's been way more than 6 bars. So that says you should find support somewhere up in here, which means the 2 to 3 bars isn't going to be nearly what I've mapped out here, but instead some small stuff up in this area that gets you back into this high. Right? So what I would be watching for on this break to buy it is to see it come down into this high, find support. It should certainly find it if it even gets that deep, it should certainly find it down here. You would actually prefer this thing to extend even deeper, right, so that you can buy on that push down, but my guess is it probably won't. It'd probably come up into the top up here and find support, and that would be the buy area. Let's look at the weekly, and I didn't see anything there that was concerning. Let me quickly glance. So here you got a retest. Now this one's a little different. So here, this is even more information. Here you got a retest regen off of this bar, right? And this one is coming back within 6 bars. Okay, so that says you should get to the bottom side of it more than likely. And for interest's sake, let's see what that low is. 60. All right, now let's go back to the daily. So 60 is the low on the weekly it's shooting for. And if we come back over here, that high is 59.44. So you can see now you've got 2 pieces of information telling you to expect this area as the buy area more than likely. Right, somewhere in here. And so if you get that extension, that's probably going to be it. Yeah, it's a good pickup and a good read there by Mr. Barnes. Okay, let me see what else we got here. Look at India. Sure, India. Let's look at the index itself. ESN. And okay, so this one on a daily. So this one's coming in to try to break 2 swing point lows. So this would be multiple swing point low breaks, right? Same idea. So it's right at it, testing it. There's another one right below it. And that also would give you 2 to 3 bars. And you didn't have a prior high anywhere. So it really is just support zones underneath. So if it can break them both, that would be that. Let's look at the weekly though and see what the weekly looks like. Okay, you got a big bar there too on the weekly. So that's 21,960. And the retest region is this high, which is also, let's see, the number there is 21,483. Yeah, so that's quite a ways back. So 21,960. Let's go back over the daily. And the support zone is in the, yeah, it's in that area. So if this one breaks, I would think it tries to trade down into the support zone that the TA Today charts are showing us. And the question is INDY, so let me go to that. I'm assuming that's a, yeah, iShares, the Nifty, okay. So, yeah, hang on a second. Let me add this one to my ETF watch list. This is a good one to have. Bear with me just a second, please. INDY. Okay. All right, so going back to this. So the low is 25.27. And this is the Nifty 50. So this is, I would assume from the name, this is the probably the large cap 50. Let me see what the trading cube looks like on this. Okay. Well, this one doesn't give you nearly as much information as the index itself. So I would wonder, and I don't know enough about India's index, the Sensei. I don't know enough about it to know what kind of weighting structure is in it. I'll do a little homework on that and see what it is and give you my thoughts tomorrow. This one doesn't look like it's going to break. It looks like it's going to hold here. So the Nifty 50 still looks like it's going to hold. All right, folks, time's up here. Looks like some sort of a bounce tomorrow, but building, you know, if we're going to trust the Russell at all, the Russell's saying we're going to go down there and try to break it all out. And that's a big break if it does it. The Nasdaq composite is saying that we are definitely going to do it. The power indexes, if you want to call them that, are saying, hey, we want to go try to break out the highs. Talk about a mixed up market. Divergence, folks, big time. And I would think a bounce tomorrow. Let's see what the ECB does. If they don't ease, I don't think we can go far. If they ease, we can probably get a decent pop. Have a great night. Take care of yourself. Until next time, I'm LA. This is, and it was, your daily TA wrap. Thanks for joining me. Have a great night. I'll see you next time. Good night, folks.